next, we have Heidi Kuhn. She is founder and CEO of Roots of Peace, and she's also a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 3. Please welcome Heidi.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, global citizens, I am so deeply honored to be here among the presence of giants. And your presence and your words here have so deeply inspired me to think in different paradigms for peace. I thank Chip and Sally, and of course Emma and Jim, for cordially inviting me to this unprecedented event for peace. 20 years ago, I lifted my glass in a Mines to Vines toast, that the world may go from mines to vines, replacing the scourge of landmines with bountiful vineyards and orchards worldwide. It was 3 weeks after the late Princess Diana had died, and she had catapulted the issue of landmines to the forefront of the international agenda. Today, over 20 years later, there are an estimated 70 million landmines in 70 countries. And as a mother and a grandmother, I know it takes 8 pounds for the average weight of a newborn child, and it takes 8 pounds to detonate a landmine. And when I was a youth growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and recognized as a 10-year-old child watching on a black and white television in 1968, something that was called a body count. I was so sad. I asked my mother and dad, what's a body count? And during that year, we saw Martin Luther King die, and we saw Bobby Kennedy die. And I was 10 years old. And when I heard what the Vietnam War was about, I made a vow to grow up from a child to pursue an education in peace. During the 1970s, I attended school at the University of California at Berkeley and graduated in political economics of industrial societies. Years later, I married my college sweetheart and had 3 beautiful children. He was transferred, of course, as life has it, to Alaska. He worked for IBM, which means I've been moved. But when I told him I love you and I promised to marry you and follow you to the ends of the earth, I never expected him to take me literally. But as we all know, there's various paths to the divine that we sometimes don't recognize, those footsteps that we take. And in a way, we cannot curse the darkness, but only light a candle. When I arrived in 1979 with a 1-, 3-, and 5-year-old child, I recognized in Alaska there were many things that were going on that I was seeing with my own eyes. The receding glaciers, and the melting of the ice curtain between US-Soviet relations. I became the weather anchor on the 6 o'clock news because it's the land of the midnight sun, and there were only 1 hour of darkness and 1 hour of light during the winter. So I'd have a little magic act, and I would shrink into the television box, and I was the weather anchor, cold, cold, and colder. Well, women's intuition, 3 weeks later, the Exxon Valdez hit Bly Reef, and 11 million gallons of oil spilled into the pristine Prince William Sound. I recognized at that moment it was an opportunity to tell this story, and went to Governor Steve Cooper and asked at that time, because there was no social media, and to turn the transponder called RATNet, Rural Alaskan Television, to the lower 48, and to become the CNN reporter and producer from Alaska to the lower 48. Sally, I'd like to thank Ted Turner. He signed my paychecks when I was the stringer reporter. I realized at that moment there was another very important story that was unfolding, and that was the melting of the ice curtain between US-Soviet relations. I flew in December 1989 to Alaska, from Alaska to Moscow, and unbeknownst, without any social media, recognized that I was in the middle of history, for Andrei Sakharov just died, and I had the worldwide exclusive. So Bridging Borders for Peace launched an incredible career, and I was the CEO and owner of Alaska Newslink, which merged into Newslink International. My life was great. Then I was diagnosed with malignant cancer. And at age 30, I hung up my cleats. And as anyone who's gone through the knife before, you make a little prayer between you and your Maker. Dear God, grant me the gift of life, and I will do something special with it. Well, this year, I celebrated my 60th birthday. I have doubled my life. Each day is a gift. And thank you. Thank you. Each day is a gift. So when I was holding a little child, my 2-year-old child, and my children weren't even teenagers, I was watching CNN. And not only was the O.J. Simpson trial going on, but I watched the footsteps of the late Princess Diana. She was walking through minefields. She was a mother. Angola, Bosnia-Herzegovina. And 3 weeks after her death, because I knew a lot of people growing up 5th generation in San Francisco Bay Area, I decided I was asked to host an event. It was on September 21st, 1997, which has then become the UN International Day of Peace. It wasn't at that time. I lifted my glass in a visionary toast, may the world go from mines to vines. Images of blood to wine, killing fields to vineyards. I didn't know what those words meant. But as a mother of 4, I knew I had to take those footsteps out of the living room of my home. I recognized it was the harvest season, and there was a beautiful harvest of hope in the Napa Valley. I went up to Napa Valley vintners, knocked at their door. They answered. Robert Mondavi, Milenko Grgic, Diane Disney Miller, Judy Jordan. And they helped me as visionary vintners turn mines to vines. With not a penny in my hand, we decided to go up to Canada to witness the Ottawa Treaty to ban landmines. And while the United States did not and has not signed this historic effort to ban landmines, we went as vintners, as farmers, respecting the plight of other farmers. And I forever will thank Mondavi, Behringer, and Wente for following the footsteps of a mother. A year later, I decided to begin the new millennium, going outside of my normal backyard. I decided I wanted to go not to Tahiti, Hawaii, where my other friends. I asked my husband, my dear husband and 4 children. I wanted to walk my first minefield. I went to Croatia. Shortly after the Balkan War, there were 1.2 million landmines in Croatia. And with the support of the vintners and the Silicon Valley and incredible global citizens, helped me to see further by standing on the shoulders of giants. We raised the funds and traveled with Milenko Grgic, who won the Paris tasting in 1976, to his beloved homeland to remove today all of the landmines in the vineyards. It is now a #1 tourist destination. So thank you, Milenko. He's 95 years young. I wasn't done. After Bibinje, Čestamale, Čestavelika, Baštika, and a place called Vukovar, where the horrors of war, are now bountiful vineyards, I decided to respect the seeds we have in common rather than those which separated us. And we all experienced September 11th, the tragedy of September 11th. I had just returned 2 days earlier with Jody Williams on a trip to Croatia. I never thought I would see Vukovar in my own backyard. And we flew through New York, and I took my oldest son, who was 18 and going to college, and we saw those beautiful towers, and that was my America. And a few days later, the towers fell. And I realized we needed to bring the phoenix up from the ashes, and our promise to the innocent Afghan people needed to be taken in turning mines to vines. In Afghanistan, it's a Muslim country. But Afghanistan, if you look at it on a map, it's shaped like a leaf. And despite what we hear in media and news, it's the garden of Central Asia. And I flew over to Afghanistan, and a dear vintner, the CEO and founder of Silverado, said, "Tell me about those mines to vines." Well, I said, her name was Diane Miller, and I said, "Mrs. Miller, do you know that the grapes that we celebrate and harvest in California actually originated from Afghanistan? There's 70 varietals of grape. The Shindukani, the red globe, the beautiful fresh grapes that we're so blessed to enjoy and nurture. But of course, in Afghanistan, these grapes are never fermented due to respect for the Muslim culture. So grapes and raisins reflect upon minds to vines. And the area north of Kabul in the Shamali Plains in the 1970s was riddled cruelly by landmines. They not only burned the vineyards, they laid landmines to destroy the spirit of the people. I believe as we demine the soil, we demine the soul, S-O-I-L-S-O-U-L. And it's a time in human history where we need to demine, remove the landmines in our heads, our hearts, and in our ground. Afghanistan has 10 million landmines, so the dear people cannot repatriate and are inspired to stay within their lands. Today, Mrs. Miller wrote me a check one day, and she goes, "You turn your minds to vines. You remind me of Dad." Mrs. Miller, who was your father? It was the biggest check I had ever seen in my life. My father, I'm Diane Disney Miller. My father was Walt Disney. They own Silverado Vineyards, and I can never thank her again. She is now passed, but the legacy she has left for millions of Afghan farmers and families. We have planted 5 million trees in Afghanistan in all 34 provinces and impacted over 1 million farmers and families. And that little dream of Minds to Vines has been realized. For today, as a mother and grandmother, I manage over $100 million from USAID, USDA, DOD, European Union, and Asian Development Bank. But that is, ladies and gentlemen, a drop in the bucket. For the Afghan farmers right now, I'm coordinating a harvest of hope in Helmand and Kandahar. The beautiful melons and pomegranates are now being harvested. And Ghazni, Wardak, Logar, the apples, the apricots, the almonds, the fresh grapes on trellis grapevines north of Kabul are being harvested in a harvest of hope. I look forward to going back to Afghanistan in a few weeks to oversee, as a woman, a mother, a CEO, to not let the Afghan families and farmers be afraid. So I'm going to just now let the video roll. I'd like to tell you about a young gentleman that I met who thanked me on behalf of his mom, and I would love to inspire all of you in this room to take a moment to take the beauty of the mountains we can hike, the rivers we can run, without the fear of a single landmine. How very privileged we all are to be in this room and to be inspired to do something for peace. As Reverend Gurley said, Kairos, for coincidence is a miracle in which God prefers to remain anonymous. There are no accidents. And the inspiration I received from Hank Hawk, Newsom, and civil rights, and the lessons that I've learned to rejuvenate the nation. I am a proud American, and I wondered why on landmines on earth I would be here. I'm in the wrong conference, American Renewable Energy. I do landmines. But I've learned from all of you here, Connie, trust, frequency, and of course, Klaus Nobel. For all the efforts in this room are noble efforts, and we need to gather as never before from the top of this mountain, from snowmass to the masses, and may we beat their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks, so that nation shall not lift up sword against nation, and may they learn war no more. Please join me as we turn minds to vines.
20 years ago, the last month of her life, my mother campaigned to draw attention to the horrific and indiscriminate impact of landmines.
Britain's Prince Harry is paying tribute to his late mother, Princess Diana, by urging people to rid the world of landmines by 2025. Prince Harry and his brother, William, were just young teens when their mother was tragically killed in a car accident in 1997. Prince Harry is now 32 and eager to carry on his mother's mission with the help of demining organizations, including the Halo Trust and MAG, the Mines Advisory Group.
My mother had been shocked and appalled by the impact that landmines were having on incredibly vulnerable people, and on children in particular. She didn't understand why more people were not willing to address the cause of so much suffering.
A mother of 4 young children in San Rafael was so profoundly moved by Diana's life that she was willing to address the suffering from landmines. Heidi Kuhn founded her charity, Roots of Peace, 20 years ago in San Rafael with her husband, Gary. Her dream, turn mines to vines, replacing landmines with grapevines or other food crops. They told me recently they were invited to Kensington Palace this year to hear the prince's call to action.
It was very emotional for him. You could really see that in his eyes and his demeanor, and it was very heartfelt.
Heidi and Gary were so inspired by Princess Diana, they traveled to the same landmine-filled province she walked in Angola. Their work with the Halo Trust saved people and animals. They applied lessons they learned through their Roots of Peace model in Afghanistan. First, remove the landmines, and then help the farmers improve their crop yields for food and for export. 14 years later, it's having a stunning effect on the economy's gross domestic product.
We've pushed up the GDP of the country. Our projects impact the GDP, 2 or 3%. At the farm level, it's, people changing their lives because now they have enough money for education and health. They don't need handouts.
Roots of Peace has worked in more than half a dozen countries removing landmines and restoring farmland. They are ready for Prince Harry's challenge in his mother's memory.
I think she'd be proud of her son and what he's doing, because this was one of her top causes.
We can take the words of her son and in the next 8 years follow up on that call to action and eradicate all landmines by 2025. It would be a miracle.
Cheryl Jennings, ABC 7 News.
Move it out because a person could actually lift this out.
Thank you. I want to honor thank you so much. Really very appreciate your blessings and your prayers in all faiths, colors, and creeds. I would now like to acknowledge a very humble global citizen in the room. Chip, could you stand up, please? All of you have seen this beautiful, beautiful brochure. We've all benefited by networking with one another. And when we descend from this mountain to truly plant the roots of peace on earth from whatever our passion and calling is, there's a little word on the back. Has anybody read this? Chip told me he wrote it. From competition to collaboration. Thank you. And I want to say to everybody in this room, which he quietly told me in the elevator, AREDAY is a nonprofit. And as we're all seeking funding for our own oxygen mask, let's hold the oxygen mask, and before we leave, make a major pledge to AREDAY, because it certainly has inspired and changed my life. Thank you, Chip. If I may just have another minute more by that little ad, I just want to say this is a book. You're all welcome to see it. On the cover is another global hero. Emma, will you please stand? This is Emma. And Emma walked the minefields of Vietnam with me. And as you'll see, the epic minefield we're now leading in a collaboration, not competition, is to take out 100,000 landmines, UXOs, and cluster munitions, which remain in Vietnam today. We are raising $20 million by Earth Day 2020, and we will not give up. I'd like Patrick Ferlati to stand, and he's quietly in the corner. He's going to be telling you he just gave $50,000 to lead this campaign, and I hope by next year, when we return, hopefully we're invited back, that we will achieve our goal and the goal of many to build peace. The last individual I'd like to stand and honor is Klaus Nobel. And we are announcing a collaboration and a press release between 4 organizations whom we met for noble efforts to eradicate the landmines and bring the children of the world to plant peace. Klaus Nobel, thank you to you and your family for your inspiration. Amen.
Princess Diana should have more kids.
Yes, I like that. So just like Prince Harry, I had nothing to do with these wars, and I'm here to clean up the mess. And I don't have the sentimental, the sadness, that kind of prevents the landmines from being removed, and it's kind of this karma that I really believe that this is an amazing project. I'm here to help Heidi scale the projects on the Projects for Good platform, as she is a project owner. She cannot take out millions of landmines in enough time. And what I'd like to do is have her be a facilitator to other projects and other villages to take on how exactly to remove the landmines. They're very difficult to remove because there's a certain way to do it. It's the barrier to entry. It's very complicated. There's technology. We don't, of course, want anybody to be injured while removing the landmines, so there's a lot of training. And so as a facilitator, we believe that through the cell phone features of payments and the features we built on the platform, that Heidi could empower other projects to scale up the removal of landmines all over the world. So for $300 on Projects for Good, one farmer could clear how much land, Heidi? Several acres of land, and if you would go onto Projects for Good and make a donation, then we could help these farmers. Thank you guys very much.